Tammy's love of the rosary and newfound faith sustained her through her medical journey. Weeks after that interview with Column, we visited her again on Easter weekend in Toronto when she entered into full communion with the Catholic Church. Our prayers and congratulations to Tammy on her joyous homecoming. She is one of thousands of people around the globe who opened their hearts to the Lord that Easter weekend. Is world-renowned psychologist Dr. Jordan Peterson, who has a long history of religious skepticism. Millions of people read his books and listen to his podcasts and other social media. She sat down in their home in Canada to speak to our correspondent Colin Flynn. Tammy shared the moment her doctor told her just how serious her cancer diagnosis was.
His hands were shaking, and I thought, this isn't good news. So he started out and he said, actually, we biopsied the half a kidney that we took out, and in fact, it's not renal cell carcinoma as we suspected. It's something called a Bellini tumor. He said a Bellini tumor, they are very rare, and they grow so fast that the only way they're diagnosed is after someone's passed away. And so what you've got is going to kill you, and you're going to die in about 10 months.
Wow.
And I thought, well, you know, all my mother and all her family are dead, and they died in their 60s and 70s, you know, and I thought, maybe maybe I've just inherited whatever is going on in my family, and oh well. It was selfish, you know. I was in the doctor's office and I was just thinking, oh, I'll die.
But maybe it was too overwhelming. Because
it was definitely too overwhelming.
Less than a year, 10 months left on this planet.
Right.
I mean, your mind, do you think, why me?
No, I didn't think why me. I thought, oh yeah, me. That's what I thought.
So you have the diagnosis, you're in hospital, you believe you only have months to live and no one survives this cancer. But you start to pray, and particularly the rosary.
Well, I started to pray right away after that day. But it wasn't very long that they put me back in the hospital because they needed to get me back there quick to do the surgery, because there wasn't any radiation or chemo or anything, because they don't treat this cancer. There was no treatment for it. So just surgery. So they got me back in very quickly to do surgery. I think within a couple of weeks I was back in the hospital. And they did the surgery, it went very well. And then I started convalescing, and I went home, and within a week my legs started to fill up with fluid. And they had got the cancer, but it turns out that they had missed some of the lymph, and so it was draining, and so my life forces were draining into the lower parts of my body first. But I was slowly filling up because it was my feet, my lower legs, and then my thighs. And I went to see the doctor. He saw me and he said, go to emergency right now. And they siphoned off 9 liters of fluid.
Wow, 9 liters.
They'd never siphoned off that much fluid, but I wasn't getting any better. I was wasting away. So they put me in the hospital again, and that's when Queenie emailed me, I guess. I don't remember, but she emailed and asked if she could come. She showed up and she had 2 rosaries that were blessed by the Pope, and she said, would you like to pray the rosary? And I was like, yeah, I would. And she said, do you know the rosary? And I said, well, I do, but I don't know how to pray the rosary. So there's a very beautiful atrium in the hospital from the 4th floor, and then it goes up many floors. So there are trees in there, and so people who are very sick, when they can't get outside, they can be wheeled in there and they can have some what seems like fresh air and nature and quiet. And so we would go there every day at 10 in the morning and pray for 2 hours. She came every day for 5 weeks.
That is incredible. And she would pray the rosary decade by decade with you and explain the glorious mysteries.
Yep.
And
absolutely.
What did you think when you held the rosary beads, when you were praying the Hail Marys, when you were going through the rhythm of the rosary? Well,
the rhythm I think was, it was calming for me, because, you know, when I was talking to her, I was talking about, my mother was already passed away, but I would have been leaving my father, who was like 90 at the time, my sisters, my brothers, my husband, my children, my friends. I was leaving everybody, and so I was talking about those kind of things, but also she would say, who do you want to pray for at the beginning of each mystery? What's your intention? And I would say my intention, and then, but it would take me, I don't know, I can remember talking a lot. It probably took me 20 minutes to say my intention. Before then we would pray. But, you know, the prayer was enough to take me from this long, drawn-out meditation into these people that I loved and was going to miss, to bringing it back to a place where I was paying attention, but in a very rhythmical, methodical way. So I think that in that way it was good, because without the rhythm of the Hail Marys, and also you're touching beads too, so that keeps you present.
When you were praying the rosary, I know you've said before that it helped you deal with, for example, the pain you were going through. At points you were in immense pain. But did you feel that pain kind of subside because of prayer?
Well, prayer, I would usually pray the Lord's Prayer when I would say I had to go down for a scan or something, and they would hook me up some way or another to these big machines, and because I didn't weigh anything anymore, I froze to death, and so that was part of the pain that I was in. Was I was very uncomfortable because I was wasting away, and also the procedures were invasive and painful. But if I prayed the Lord's Prayer just constantly over and over, I could just get through the procedure, and I could deny somehow the pain. It would help me deny the pain, or transcend the pain, I guess you could say.
Was it making you more comfortable with the reality you were facing of death, of the afterlife?
Oh yeah, for sure. I didn't have any fear. I just stayed with God in the present. I didn't go anywhere. You know, lots of people sent me prayers.
And you prayed the novena for the sick as well, I believe.
I did. That was at the end, when they finally found out there was a doctor in Pennsylvania that might have been able to help me. Before I left, Queenie asked if I wanted to be blessed. And Father Eric Nikolai, he came to bless me. And he told me to pray on gratitude. And he gave me the Opus Dei novena for the sick. And it was on the 5th day of praying those prayers that the leak in my lymph system closed up.
When the leak closed up, Tammy, what did the doctor say to you? What was the reaction from the medical professionals?
So I was sitting out having breakfast. I had eaten some fat the night before. It was called a fat challenge. If there was still a leak, then the bag that was a clear fluid would become milky, because that would mean that the fat was still coming out of the lymph. So the night before I'd had an egg or something. I think I had eggs. And I looked at the bag and I didn't see any milkiness, but I didn't know how long it would take. So the next morning I was having breakfast, and an intern and the head nurse came outside and they sat down with me and they said, so tomorrow we're going to cut you open and look for this, which is looking for a needle in a haystack. And we need you to do a fat challenge. And I said, well, I did a fat challenge last night. They said, well, let's see the bag. So I lifted up the bag and it was clear. And their eyes got big and they said, you're better? And I went into the hospital and they pulled out all, and in half an hour I was out of the hospital. And then they phoned me every week for a month. And at the end of the month they said, you're better. Goodbye. Good luck.
Isn't it incredible, from being told originally in the office with the doctor's hand shaking that you had a terminal cancer, 10 months to live, and the operations and the complications and the leak, to be told, okay, you're better.
Yeah. Right.
What do you put it down to?
Well, you know, earlier in June, when I was back in the hospital again with this more serious problem, my husband was just beside himself, and I felt sorry for him, and I wanted to save him some of the pain that he was feeling. And so I thought, I didn't even think, what can I say? And the idea, the thought, I guess, maybe it was a prayer, right? Maybe it was a prayer that I prayed because I wanted to help my husband. I said, I'll be back at it by August 19th. It's our anniversary. And that day that that I stopped the leak was our anniversary. And so even though people can say, oh, maybe the dye irritated the lymph and maybe that closed it up, and maybe it did. Why did it do that on that day? Why was it that day? Because that was the day, that was our anniversary, our 32nd anniversary. And everyone, my husband, my son was there with his wife, my sister-in-law and her kids were there, and everybody was just blown away that is what happened that day. I was blown away that's what happened that day.
People watching this, they may not be in the same situation you were in with that type of cancer.
Right.
But another illness, another trial, another trouble, heartache in their life. They think of praying, that's not for me, that's what other people do. I don't even know what the rosary is. What would you say to them?
Well, everybody has their own journey, that's for sure, and they have to get to it their own way. And I got to it my own way, and it took me a long time. But I don't know, it's something to focus on when chaos is all around, and when you're ill like that, there's so much chaos, and you don't know. You feel, unbounded, and you feel like you're not grounded anymore. And when you pray the rosary, that can bring you to a place that it can center you. It can center you for the day, or even for the hour, right? Or even for the minute. And make it a habit, That's the thing about the rosary. It's a practice, right? So it's not always every day. It's not always going to be this monumental thing that happens every day. But every day you're going to take it out and you're going to pray it. But one day you're going to need it. And because you've been practicing, there it'll be. Life is suffering, and you're going to need to have something to hold on to when the world opens up and there's nothing beneath you. And when that happens, well, God can bring you back up again.
Tammy, it's an incredible story. It's an inspirational one, and thank you so much for sharing it with me.
My pleasure. Thanks for the invitation.